Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived in Saudi Arabia in his latest leg of international travel.
China's President Xi Jinping unveils a grand plan for development in the region as its Central Asian summit in the city of Xi'an drew to a close.
Ukrainian President Zelensky has arrived in Saudi Arabia to attend the Arab League summit, where he will address leaders who have remained largely neutral on Russia's invasion of his country. Many still maintain warm ties with Moscow. The visit comes amid a whirlwind of international travel by the Ukrainian leader, who until now has mostly visited allied countries. Taken to social media, Zelensky said Saudi Arabia could play a significant role concerning Russia's full-scale invasion, adding that further cooperation could take bilateral relations to a new level. Saudi Arabia pledged €370 million in aid to Ukraine earlier this year and has voted in favour of UN resolutions calling on Russia to end its invasion and refrain from annexing Ukrainian territory. The Saudis have even offered to mediate between Ukraine and Russia following a prisoner exchange deal they brokered last year. President Zelensky is due to attend the G7 summit of world leaders in Hiroshima, Japan on Sunday.
The aftermath of yet another night of Russian attacks, the 9th this month. Kyiv says it shot down 29 of the 30 missiles launched by Moscow in the airstrikes, but there had been some damage from falling debris. As the unprecedented wave of attacks continued, 8 cruise missiles were fired over the southern port city of Odessa, with 1 person killed and 2 wounded in the attack. Kyiv also said it's repaired the Patriot air defense system, damaged in an attack on Tuesday, despite Russian claims that it had been destroyed. The Russian Defense Ministry, however, claims to have successfully hit all assigned targets in the nighttime high-precision missile strikes, destroying significant stockpiles of Ukrainian forces' weapons and ammunition. Speaking in Lisbon, NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg has welcomed the announcement by allies that they will provide cruise missiles and train Ukrainian pilots to use Western fighter jets. He says he expects the alliance to commit to spending 2% of their GDP on defense at its next summit in July. As the G7 summit focuses on a perceived threat from Beijing's growing influence, Chinese President Xi Jinping unveiled a grand plan for Central Asia's development. The parallel 2-day gathering in Xi'an with leaders from 5 Central Asian countries wrapped up on Friday, with President Xi taking a swipe at the West's attempts to deter Beijing's economic and political developments.
我们要共同践行全球安全倡议，坚决反对外部势力干涉地区国家内政，策动颜色革命，保持对三股势力零容忍，着力破解地区安全困境，携手建设一个远离冲突、永慕和平的共同体。
China wants to boost its trade with the region by promising state-of-the-art highways and railway lines, as well as speeding up construction of pipelines to supply gas. It wants to take on a new leadership role in the region that has traditionally been a Russian sphere of influence. The Central Asian Summit was attended by leaders from Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan and Uzbekistan. Leaders of the G7 group of major economies laying down wreaths at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum as the crucial 3-day summit gets underway in Japan. The city was victim to the first atomic bomb attack during World War II, and this memorial serves as a reminder of the horrors of war. As meetings get underway, Ukrainian officials say President Volodymyr Zelensky will attend the gathering in person. With the war in Ukraine on top of the agenda, he's expected to ask US President Joe Biden and other leaders to reaffirm their support for his country. The Group of 7 has already pledged more sanctions against Russia, as well as promising a united front against China's assertive foreign policy. Meanwhile, hundreds of demonstrators took to the streets of Hiroshima to denounce the 3-day gathering. They held up banners damning what they described as the imperialist summit, along with other anti-war messages. But the war in Ukraine is not the only topic on the agenda. France says it will use the opportunity to address the climate crisis and artificial intelligence. A helicopter hovers over the flooded streets of a town in Emilia-Romagna as rescue workers evacuate yet another person from their home. Some 20,000 people have been left homeless in the northern region, with 41 towns and villages destroyed by water. The death toll from the floods has risen to 13, but several people are still missing after torrential rains pushed rivers and tributaries to burst their banks.
Non abbiamo mai visto un lavoro così in tanti anni qui.
Mai visto?
No, a lungo no.
Qui il comune si sta facendo anche da fare, però il problema è che siamo colpiti in massa da tutte le parti. Adesso sembra abbia rotto un altro fiume, quindi non lo so.
People in despair as their homes, farmlands and infrastructure are underwater, the most catastrophic flooding to affect Italy in 100 years. Although the rains have stopped, the sewage systems are saturated and water continues to overflow. The region, which has been suffering from a drought, estimates losses in the millions from the widespread damage.
Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said stability and economic security are at stake as the country prepares to vote in its general election on Sunday. In his penultimate speech, Mitsotakis from the ruling centre-right New Democracy Party hit out at the leader of the left-wing opposition Syriza Party, Alexis Tsipras.
Κόβει ξανά 83 δις από το λεφτόδεντρο και ζητά ο αθεόφοβος δικαιοσύνη παντού. Παντού εκτός από δίπλα του, όπου έχει το καταδικασμένο 13-0 στο ειδικό δικαστήριο Νίκο Παπά. Το ερώτημα της Κυριακής είναι από τώρα μπροστά μας. Θέλουμε σταθερότητα ή άγνωστες περιπέτειες. Με λίγα λόγια, προτιμάμε κυβέρνηση Νέας Δημοκρατίας και Πρωθυπουργό Μητσοτάκη ή κυβέρνηση ΣΥΡΙΖΑ και Πρωθυπουργό Τσίπρα. Η επιλογή πλέον περνά στα δικά σας χέρια.
Meanwhile, Tsipras addressed supporters in Athens, urging citizens to vote for an end to the Mitsotakis government and called on all progressive parties to be open to negotiations to form a coalition government on Monday.
Ζητάμε λοιπόν σήμερα με εντιμότητα και με ανοιχτή καρδιά από τον ελληνικό λαό όχι μια δεύτερη ευκαιρία για να κυβερνήσουμε, αλλά την πρώτη ευκαιρία να κυβερνήσουμε με βάση το πρόγραμμά μας, με βάση τα θέλω μας και όχι τα πρέπει, χωρίς μνημόνια, χωρίς καταναγκασμούς, χωρίς την Τρόικα, χωρίς το Σόιμπλε, χωρίς όλους αυτούς που μας επέβαλαν την πολιτική τους. Να λοιπόν τι σημαίνει ψήφος στο ΣΥΡΙΖΑ και αλλαγή. Σημαίνει αύξηση μισθών, μείωση τιμών, ρύθμιση χρεών και ένα δίκαιο, αποτελεσματικό, ισχυρό κοινωνικό κράτος δίπλα στον πολίτη. Αυτό σημαίνει ψήφος στο ΣΥΡΙΖΑ και αλλαγή. Με φόρα την Κυριακή να αλλάξουμε τη χώρα. Γεια σας.
Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan has agreed to meet with the President of Azerbaijan, Ilham Aliyev. The Russian-mediated summit will take place next week in Moscow. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov will also host the foreign ministers of Armenia and Azerbaijan for talks in the Russian capital today. The two Caucasus neighbours have fought two wars over the Nagorno-Karabakh region and often see deadly clashes along their volatile border. Russia has announced it is prepared to act as a possible mediator in the war in Sudan. Speaking on the sidelines of the Russia Islamic World Kazan Forum, Deputy Foreign Minister Mikhail Bogdanov said Moscow is ready to provide warring parties with a platform for negotiations. After more than 1 month of fighting between the Sudanese army and the Rapid Support Forces paramilitary group, the UN says the country needs €2.7 billion in emergency aid. Around 1,000 people have been killed so far and 1 million others have been displaced. Police have arrested a driver with apparent psychiatric problems who managed to speed through one of the main gates into the Vatican City on Thursday night. The driver drove past Swiss guards into the palace courtyard, despite Vatican gendarmes firing a shot into the vehicle's front tyres. The Vatican press office described the suspect as around 40 years old and in a serious state of psychophysical alteration. He is being held in the Vatican's small jail for medical examination.
Andy Rourke, bassist of the Smiths, one of the most influential British bands of the 1980s, has died after a long illness from pancreatic cancer. He was 59. In a lengthy post on Instagram, guitarist and fellow band member Marr paid tribute to Rourke, who he first met aged 11 in Manchester. They instantly started jamming together and became lifelong friends. A bass style that could be defined as both twerky and melodic, Marr said Andy reinvented what it is to be a bass player.
Indiana Jones fever swept day 3 of Cannes, ahead of Thursday's screening of the latest film in the series, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. It's the last appearance in the saga for its star, 80-year-old Harrison Ford. Inside the theatre, he received a standing ovation before being presented with the honorary Palme d'Or. Another American actor walking the red carpet was Sean Penn in Cannes with the paramedic drama Black Flies by French director Jean-Stéphane Sauveur.
Since his debut in the competition nearly 20 years ago, tennis heavyweight Rafael Nadal hasn't missed a Roland Garros tournament. This year, for the first time, he will have to watch from the sidelines. The Spaniard, the current French Open title holder, has won the tournament a record 14 times and says he is pulling out because of a lingering hip injury. And in more shock news, Nadal, who turns 37 next month, also announced that next year could be the final season of his career.